hold on tight, because the storm just keeps building. On Monday, 2nd June 2025, episode 69 rocked the courtroom like a bombshell. Mert's shocking declaration, Azra's painful choice, Melis's world shattering, and the web of lies, betrayal and heartbreak tangled even tighter. The battle for Mert's future is on, and the stakes have never been higher. With each passing day, the tension only rises, secrets unravel, and every decision could change everything. You don't want to miss a second of the drama that's about to unfold. But first, hit that subscribe button, join the channel membership for exclusive content, and if you want to show your support, donate via Super Thanks. Don't forget to let those ads play for at least 30 seconds to keep this channel running strong. Every second counts. Monday, 2nd June 2025, episode 69 arrived like a bombshell in the courtroom. Just when Azra thought she had braced herself for anything, Mert stood up during the custody hearing and shattered expectations with a declaration that sent ripples through the room. No one could have predicted the depth of clarity and strength Mert displayed, and his words forced Azra to face the truth she had long been running from. Her eyes locked with Cenk's, filled with both pain and resolution, as she quietly accepted that the time had come to choose, not just for herself, but for Mert. Meanwhile, Melis's world was crumbling in the background. What began as a simple conversation turned into a confession from Kadir that pulled the rug from under her. The revelation wasn't just shocking, it was devastating, and it threatened the very foundation of their fragile relationship. By the end of the day, two women stood at the edge of irreversible decisions, each pushed there by truths they didn't want to hear. Tuesday, 3rd June 2025, episode 70 offered no relief from the emotional intensity. Sumru, who had long considered herself the mastermind of manipulation, was jolted by a brutal confrontation with Kansu. For the first time, Kansu refused to be used like a pawn and made her mother see the cold truth. Azra was not the enemy, merely collateral in Sumru's endless pursuit of control. That clarity left Sumru momentarily speechless, a rare and dangerous thing. Elsewhere, Azra tried to keep her dignity intact amidst the rubble of her heart. Friends and foes alike, including even Serap with her carefully measured sympathy, reached out with gestures of support. Yet it was the silent gestures, Farid's hand on her shoulder, Mezit's uncharacteristic gentleness, that reminded Azra she was still surrounded by fragments of kindness. But even as shoulders to cry on appeared, the pain of her choice lingered like an open wound. Wednesday, 4th June 2025, episode 71 unfolded in the eerie quiet that always follows a courtroom storm. Azra, shaken but resolute, began implementing her decision. No longer allowing others to dictate her future, she moved through the day with a composed exterior, even as internal doubts tried to claw their way to the surface. Every moment away from Mert left her breathless with worry, yet she clung to the belief that distance might protect him. Meanwhile, Cenk was anything but calm. Unable to accept the outcome of the custody case, he threw himself into every legal corner he could find, consulting lawyers and calling in favors. His mission was simple: get Mert back where he belonged. His feelings for Azra were no longer just romantic, they had become entwined with a fierce desire to rebuild the family they'd almost created. But his desperation risked clouding his judgment, especially with the Selen group quietly slipping out of his grasp. Thursday, 5th June 2025, episode 72 brought heartbreak wrapped in false promises. Azra, weary and emotionally worn, signed the agreement with Sumru, sealing a deal that would ensure Mert's protection but at the cost of her love with Cenk. Watching her walk away, Cenk didn't just lose the woman he loved, he lost faith in the fight. Farid noticed his growing detachment and grew increasingly anxious about the company's future. The once bold heir was now lost in the chaos of personal agony. Across town, a knock on the Selen mansion's door brought unexpected tension. Kadir, braving the lion's den, arrived unannounced and sat face to face with the powerful Selene matriarch. His visit wasn't about confrontation, it was about redemption. He wanted them to know he wasn't the man they'd assumed. But in a house built on suspicion and secrets, his words would need more than sincerity to gain traction. Friday, 6th June 2025, episode 73 ignited like dry straw catching flame. Tensions erupted as Cenk, raw from betrayal, lashed out at his mother Serap during a tense family discussion. The words exchanged between mother and son weren't just harsh, they were final, breaking a long-standing fragile peace. Serap, who had been hiding behind civility for years, now stood openly opposed to her son's choices. Meanwhile, Sumru's past came rushing back to haunt her. In a move that stunned everyone, Mesut made contact with investigators and hinted that he might just offer up Sumru to save himself in Kemal's case. The tables were turning, and for once Sumru wasn't pulling the strings. As the week ended, every alliance was either frayed or fractured, and the battle lines were being redrawn. Monday, 9th June 2025, episode 74 opened on a heavy note, with Cenk dragging himself through his daily routines like a ghost. His once confident swagger had been replaced by a hollow stare, the pain of losing Azra still fresh in every breath he took. At the Selen estate, he tried to juggle his responsibilities, but the cracks were beginning to show. Board meetings were missed, calls unanswered. Farid watched with growing dread as her grandson, the man she had hoped would carry their legacy, stumbled beneath the weight of heartbreak. Meanwhile, Serap's usual sharp tongue found its favorite target again, Farid herself. Their arguments turned increasingly bitter, with Serap refusing to sacrifice a single inch of comfort or control for the family's unity. What was once a quiet tension between the women had now exploded into open war, and in that battlefield, Azra's absence was more felt than ever. Tuesday, 10th June 2025, episode 75 took a darker turn. Still spiraling from his split with Azra, Cenk found himself caught in a self-destructive haze. No longer content with silent suffering, he turned to dangerous vices to numb the sting of rejection. Alcohol-fueled nights became his escape, but every escape came with consequences. The board at the Selen Group began to whisper about instability, with investors growing restless and the company's once pristine image starting to fray. Farid noticed, she always did, but when she tried to intervene, Cenk's anger bubbled to the surface, lashing out at the very person trying to keep him afloat. In his grief, he was becoming the kind of man his father would have feared, a risk to the empire and to himself. Wednesday, 11th June 2025, episode 76 painted a sobering portrait of downfall. The Selen Group, once the pride of Istanbul's elite, was suddenly in trouble. Financial reports reflected the damage that came from emotional chaos disguised as leadership. Board members began to question Farid's decision to entrust the business to someone still bleeding from a personal war. Cenk, waking up to the aftermath of yet another reckless night, faced a bitter truth. His pain wasn't private anymore, it was infecting everything he touched. Farid, poised but worried, gave him one last warning. If he didn't pull himself together, he might lose everything his family had built. Meanwhile, far from the boardrooms, Azra heard the whispers of the company's decline and felt a pang of guilt. She knew too well how quickly things could collapse, and despite the silence between them, her heart still ached for Cenk. Thursday, 12th June 2025, episode 77 brought a jolt of life, literally. Fatma, long kept in the shadows of a coma, suddenly woke up. Her eyes fluttered open, her memories foggy but dangerous. The news sent shockwaves through the network of lies, carefully woven by Sumru and Kadir. The moment they learned she was conscious, they rushed to plan their visit. But not out of compassion. They needed to control the narrative before it spiraled. Meanwhile, Azra received a chilling letter. No name, no signature, just veiled threats referencing Kemal's mysterious death. The Akgun family was shaken, with suspicion pointing in every direction. Someone clearly didn't want the past dredged up, but Azra had made a promise to herself and to Mert. She wasn't going to back down. Friday, 13th June 2025, episode 78 lived up to its unlucky number. The fear for Mert's safety escalated as Azra's paranoia grew. She knew the letter wasn't an empty threat, but before she could act, Cenk did. Quietly, efficiently, he began following his instincts and putting people in place to protect both Mert and Azra. Though they weren't speaking, his love for her had only sharpened into resolve. Meanwhile, Kadir, ever the tactician, paid a visit to Kansu. Their tense exchange ended with a threat so terrifying that it left her visibly shaken. Kansu had information that could burn everything down, and Kadir wasn't going to let her speak. His warning was crystal clear: stay quiet or suffer the consequences. By nightfall, Kansu was silent, but her silence was laced with fear, not obedience. On Monday, 16th June 2025, episode 79, Kansu stood her ground. Kadir's attempt to silence her with intimidation had backfired. Whatever fear he instilled in her only confirmed what she suspected, that the truth she held mattered more than she realized. Her defiance simmered quietly beneath the surface, but it was there. Meanwhile, Burhan's continued efforts to reconnect with Kansu only deepened the fractures in her fragile state of mind. His presence, unwanted yet persistent, reawakened wounds neither of them had the language to address. Across town, Sumru finally found her angle. Using the turmoil surrounding Mert's recent behavior, she seized the perfect opportunity to get him out of her way. She framed it as concern for his development, but behind the soft voice and concerned eyes was a cold calculation. She was done pretending to care about a boy who complicated her ambitions. By Tuesday, 17th June 2025, episode 80, Sumru had made her next move, and this time it stunned everyone. Without consulting Azra, without so much as a warning, she announced Mert's transfer to a new school. The change left Mert disoriented and overwhelmed, retreating even further into himself. Azra, now on the outside looking in, found herself powerless. Her hands were tied, her influence stripped. She watched her brother struggle and knew every second she stayed silent was costing him more than he could verbalize. Amidst all of this, Kansu made a quiet discovery that shifted something inside her. Her father's letters, long hidden away by Sumru, finally came into her hands. As she read the words written by a man she was taught to hate, her perspective shifted, and with it, so did her loyalty. Wednesday, 18th June 2025, episode 81 brought a disturbing calm. Sumru, now firmly entrenched in the Selen group, paraded through the offices like she owned the place. Confidence was nauseating, particularly to Cenk, who had little patience for her faux professionalism. Farid, trying to keep the company afloat amidst her grandson's slipping grip and the board's increasing pressure, found herself having to entertain Sumru's ideas just to keep peace. Meanwhile, Azra was done waiting. She made a quiet but clear plan to bring Mert home, even if it meant going against the very decisions she once agreed to. Losing him was no longer an option. Her instincts screamed that Sumru's involvement wasn't just harmful, it was dangerous. On Thursday, 19th June 2025, episode 82, truth started slipping through the cracks. Burhan sat Kansu down and, without bitterness, laid bare a history she'd never been told. Years ago, Sumru had stolen money from Kemal, Azra and Mert's father. The same money that was meant to safeguard the family's future was used to bankroll Sumru's ambitions. Kansu listened in silence, her trust in her mother decaying with every word. Meanwhile, Azra hit another wall. Despite her efforts, she couldn't get Mert home. Every attempt was blocked, every plea ignored. Sumru's grip on him had tightened beyond her reach. Elsewhere, Mesut's suspicions were sharpening. The pieces around Kemal's murder weren't fitting together, but one name kept rising to the surface: Sumru. And if his gut was right, she had far more to lose than anyone imagined. By Friday, 20th June 2025, episode 83, Azra had shifted from desperation to action. Alongside Faridi and Cenk, she began scouting for a new place to live. Something stable, something real, something Mert could finally call home. It was a small glimmer of hope in an otherwise bleak month. The three of them walking through those empty rooms felt like a moment suspended in time. Three people fractured by betrayal and grief, searching for a fresh start. Meanwhile, Kadir finally admitted to Melis that he needed space. The relationship, that had once seemed like a lifeline now felt like a distraction from something unresolved inside him. Melis, already bruised from weeks of tension, nodded in agreement, but her heart felt something else entirely. Rejection. And the quiet fear that this was the beginning of another end. Monday, 23rd June 2025, episode 84, opened with a moment Azra had dreaded for weeks. After working tirelessly to gain full custody of Mert, the effort unraveled in seconds, all because of Chenk's temper. What should have been a routine legal follow-up became a disaster when Chenk's unresolved rage boiled over in front of officials. His outburst was raw, explosive, and in that moment, every doubt the authorities had about the environment Azra wanted to raise Mert in was confirmed. She watched, stunned and helpless, as their one remaining chance at securing a stable future slipped away. In the background, Serap took advantage of the chaos. With the family distracted, she made quiet moves to position herself as the head matriarch. For Serap, this wasn't just about influence, it was about survival. And if it meant stepping on Azra to get there, she had no qualms about it. On Tuesday, 24th June 2025, episode 85, Kadir began to distance himself. The charm that had once made him seem like a savior was gone, replaced by brooding introspection. He began retracing every decision that led him into the lives of the Selens, and what he found disturbed him. His involvement wasn't as pure as he'd led others to believe, and the lines between justice, revenge, and manipulation had long since blurred. At the same time, Sumru's carefully curated narrative began to crumble. For the first time, she stood face to face with the fallout of her own deceit. The truth, long buried under layers of lies, came bursting through. No one stood up for her. No one defended her. It was the moment she feared most, being truly alone, not just in public, but behind closed doors. Wednesday, 25th June 2025, episode 86 gave Azra a rare moment of joy. After weeks of longing, heartbreak, and near defeat, she finally had a peaceful moment with Mert. Their bond, fragile but unbroken, felt whole again, if only for a short time. They laughed, they shared memories, and for a while the noise of the outside world went silent. That same day, Farid and Melis appeared without warning. Their visit was casual on the surface, but the warmth behind it spoke volumes. Farid was reaching out, gently reminding Azra that despite everything, she still had people in her corner. Meanwhile, back at the Selen home, Serap's irritation grew steadily. She couldn't mask her anxiety over Kansu's growing relationship with her biological father. To her, Burhan represented a past she had buried, and now, he was back, chipping away at her influence, one heartfelt conversation at a time. Thursday, 26th June 2025, episode 87 highlighted a haunting symmetry. Kansu had grown into her mother's mirror image, ambitious, guarded, and dangerous when cornered. While Sumru plotted behind closed doors, Kansu moved through the world with the same calculating calm. The two of them, though estranged at times, were unmistakably cut from the same cloth. They didn't mind causing a little damage if it meant getting what they wanted. At the center of their storm, Azra tried to hold her ground. Serap, sensing Azra's confidence growing again, doubled down with cold civility. Every word from her mouth was dipped in venom, every compliment a blade. Azra didn't respond, not with words, but the tightness in her jaw and the shift in her tone told a different story. She was done playing nice. Then came Friday, 27th June 2025, episode 88, where everything snapped. The news spread like wildfire. Fatma had escaped. No one knew how or where she was headed, but the implications were terrifying. She wasn't just a witness. She was a loose end, the kind that could topple entire schemes if she opened her mouth. For Sumru, it was a waking nightmare. Her grip on power had never felt more fragile, and this escape, this single uncontrolled variable, was the thing she feared most. The panic on her face betrayed it all. She paced, she barked orders, but none of it mattered. Somewhere out there, Fatma was walking free, and with every second, the walls around Sumru grew thinner. By the time episode 89 aired on Monday 30th June 2025, the tension inside the Selen household had reached a quiet, suffocating peak. Sumru and Serap, both refusing to retreat, continued to provoke Azra in every conversation. Small digs, hostile glances and calculated remarks that made it clear she was no longer welcome. Azra, though visibly exhausted, chose silence, knowing any reaction would only feed their fire. Outside the house, another disturbance simmered. Burhan made a bold request, access to the cafe, and while Hulia and Mezit rejected the idea outright, Kansu surprised everyone by giving him the keys. Her decision wasn't about trust, it was a test. One more unpredictable move in a month full of uneasy alliances. With each character now retreating to their corners, one thing became clear. The next move would not be subtle, and it wouldn't be kind. Whew, what an emotional roller coaster. What's going to happen next? Will Azra find peace? Can Cenk rebuild everything he's lost? We'll only find out together, so make sure to subscribe, join the membership, and show some love with a super thanks donation. And don't skip those ads, they help keep the show going, and you don't want to miss the next twist. Until next time, stay on the edge of your seat because the drama is just getting started.